Hi, this video is about uh, saving your data in LabVIEW and building an array. So today I'm going to start off by creating a while loop. This is pretty standard. I do this in almost every program that I make. So I'm going to go to the Express menu. So right click, bring up this Express menu. I'm going to pin that there so that I have it. And I'll go to Structures. Then I'm going to grab a while loop right here, okay? And whenever I make a while loop, I'm going to right click and say create control. And I know that the graphics on the computer look pretty blocky. This is actually Windows 7, but I have all of the graphics turned off so that it goes a little bit faster. So I have disabled all any type of animation or fancy graphics because this computer is about 5 years old, so this is what we have. Okay, so under my menu, I'm going to close the programming menu here, and I'm going to go to Express. I'm going to grab my DAC Assistant, and I am going to place it right there. Okay, and as I wait for my DAC Assistant to initialize, what I'm going to do in this program today is create a recording of thermocouple data. So I'm going to go to Analog, Input, Temperature, and Thermocouple data. Okay, and it looks like I have a USB TCO1, so I'm going to pick that. This is the thermocouple reader on my device, and fortunately it is plugged in, so it is going to give me thermocouple readings. That's a really nice device from National Instruments, and I'm going to set my lower temperature to minus 200, or I think you can go down to minus 250 if you're doing liquid nitrogen, but minus 200 because it will never actually get to 77 Kelvin. And I have a K-type thermocouple, so I'm going to select K-type thermocouple, and then it's off the screen right now because my resolution is so bad, so I'm going to enter. But normally there's an OK button down at the bottom, and I sure hope it's going to let me press it. So I'll hit OK. Oh, I need to scroll down my window. Oh, no. It's not going to let me press it. Wow, this is... How can I press the button? No, DAC help. I don't want DAC help. Oh my goodness, it's not going to let me press the button. Oh, Windows! Oh, really? It's not going to let me do it. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let's try on. Oh, there we go. To make the window smaller. Tricky. Windows almost tricked me there, but I overcame. That was a problem of my screen resolution on the computer. I'm actually connecting remotely into another computer because the software I use, it has very bad resolution. So here's my DAC Assistant, and if I hit create indicator, numeric indicator here, then this is going to be my temperature data. So I'm going to type temperature right there. So now I have my temperature data. Click over here, and if I click on this on my front panel here, drag this down over here, now I've got my temperature, and I've got my stop button here. I'm going to make this stop button a little bigger in case something goes wrong. And I want to wait until my arrow gets over here, and it looks like that. Okay. So here's my temperature data. This is a single reading, and but it's not an average value. This is one value here, and it looks like it's reading the correct temperature. But I want to do an average of temperature values. So the way to do that, hit stop on my program here. You can't change anything until you hit stop. Go to your structure menu here. Under programming structures, get a for loop. Okay, and drag that around your DAC assistance. Okay? And what's really important here is this blue wire coming out of there. That is something called dynamic data, and it can change depending on what you're doing in LabVIEW. It just says data, dynamic data, and it can change, and you don't really know what it is. It's sort of a black box, and it's something that's really automated, and sometimes that can be an issue. So say you have 3 DAC assistants, and you want to put all those together and collect multiple columns of data, then you're probably going to want to not use dynamic data. Just makes it a little easier, and so we're going to find something here. Convert dynamic data. You can find it in the menus, or you can just search for it. So convert dynamic data, and this is actually located up here under Express Signal Manipulation. Okay, so and if you search for it and you find it, it will take you right to it. And I forgot, where did it say? Oh yeah, right there. So right here, there's this one, convert from dynamic data. So I'm going to click on that. And you see over on the side here, well, I have to choose now what kind of data I want to get. And with this particular thermocouple, I'm just going to grab a single scalar value. Sometimes you can make it into array. I don't want that. I'm just going to get single scalar data. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to connect those. So now what's coming out of here is just going to be a single scalar value. I'm going to go create indicator, okay, and that's going to go to the front, and these two values are going to be the same now. So if I run my program and it's saying I have an error somewhere, something is not connected, and it's my for loop data right here. You need to tell your program how many iterations you want to run of the program. So I have a while loop on the outside connected to a for loop here. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say create control, and this is going to be the number of averages. That's what I'm going to use this for. Number of averages. Okay, so make this 2-line, and of course it goes off the screen. It always puts it up here at the top, right? So I'm going to drag this down. Okay, so it's going to be my number of averages. You're going to want to make this non-zero. If you set it to 0, then it will not run at all, and you'll get a 0 value. Okay. Now, one thing you should do is right-click on here, go to Data Operations, and say Make current value default. So what that's going to do is next time you open up the program, this value is going to automatically be 10. This is going to save some confusion, because if people opened it up and it's set to 0, the program's not going to run, and they're going to say, what is going on? Why doesn't my program work? And of course you should save this. So I'm going to say thermocouple average. Then hit enter. Always save your data. Sometimes LabVIEW can recover it, but I definitely would not trust that. Okay. So where are we at now? We've got our two outputs here. We haven't done any averaging. All we've done is convert from dynamic data. So now we need to take this outside of the loop. I'm going to delete these indicators. Now I'm going to hit Control B, and I've got my scalar value here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over. I'm going to get my wiring tool, and I'm going to drag this over to the side. And you'll see here, it looks like there's an orange, a hollow orange thing, okay? And what this is doing is my for loop is going to create an array of values. And if you don't know what an array is, it's basically, you can think of it as a 1D matrix. So it's a column of data values. That's the way I imagine it. Okay? And I think that's how LabVIEW puts it. Okay, so I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to say create indicator. This right click and go create indicator or control. I can't tell you how valuable that is. That is one of the easiest things to do in LabVIEW, and you don't have to search around for things. LabVIEW will just do it for you. Okay, so let's go to the front panel now, and here's my scalar temperature value, scalar temp, and now over here's my array. So here's, drag this up, put this up here. So now I have an array of temperature values, array of T values. So array of temperatures. Get my stop button out of the way here. Okay, so my number of averages. Then I'm going to click on here, and this is my indicator, and I'm going to drag this down here. Okay, and right now the way I've got it set up is that every time I run the program, this for loop is going to fill up this array with values, and that'll be one iteration through my while loop. So I'm going to grab all this stuff here, and I'm going to move it over. My cursor. Oh, I am remoting into a PC from a Mac, so it kind of does funky things with my cursor. But so people say which one's better. I say if you really want to be awesome, you need to know how to do both, because you can do a lot with Macs and PC if they work together. The world will be in perfect harmony. So I'm gonna hit run on my program to show you what happens here, and it's filling up this array, and I have 10 values. Okay, if I set my number of averages here to say 5, then that's going to change how my for loop executes. And so now I've got an array of just 5 values, and it was dynamic. It changed automatically. So every time I change this value, it's going to create a different array. So I could go from 5 to 20 when that executes. Now it'll fill up. Okay, so now I've got 20 values. I can step through my values here. I can say 19. And the great thing about LabVIEW, people always want to push these little arrows there. Don't do that. Just click in here, and you can click on that with your arrow keys. Okay, and we can scroll through that whole array. Don't ever push these little buttons, for crying out loud. I mean, you can, but it hurts me to watch people do that, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna click the button. Don't do that. Always use shortcuts. Shortcut to get to the front and back panel. Control E, Control E, Control E. Don't go over here and click. It's really painful to watch. Always use hotkeys. Maybe I'm a Mac user. That's why I think that. Okay. So we're going to create an average value of our array here. So I'm going to close my Express menu. Go to Programming. I really don't have a lot of room because I am streaming from a PC to a Mac. I don't have a lot of extra space here on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go to my array column, if I can find it. One of these says, oh, there it is. Couldn't see it. And no, that wasn't it. I'm going to go here to its numeric. And let's see. If you don't know what something does, get this context help, and that tells you what it does. So this is add array elements. And so what this is going to do is you can take this array coming in here, my array of temperature values, and now it's going to add them together into a single value, okay? And so I'm going to wire this up here. So this is going to add it all together because I'm going to do an average. That's why I'm doing this. And if you do an average, you want to add all the values together in your array, okay? And then divide by the number of elements in your array. So this was add all the array elements. Now we need to know how many values are in our array. So let's bring our context help over here. And I never remember what they always do. I know it's in this menu somewhere. Okay, so, oh, it's right there. It's the first one, array size. Okay, so I'm going to drag that over here. Well, what array size does is you put in an array and it just tells you how big the number, how many elements are in your array. Okay, so this is going to be a whole number. It's not going to be an integer. Arrays always have whole number values. Okay, so that'll go in there. And so now I have, I've added all the temperature values in my array together. And now I know the size of my array. And so I just need to divide this value, the total value of all the array elements add together, by the number of elements. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to not comparison, that's the wrong menu, numeric. And I'm going to grab a divide symbol here. Okay. And if you hold it up here, it will automatically connect a wire. Oh, no, it didn't do it. Well, sometimes maybe if you're not remoting into a PC, it will do it. But it did change into the wire tool. So the top element we see up here is X and Y. X is on the top, Y on the bottom. And then over here it says X divided by Y. Okay, so I'm going to divide the total values of array, the total sum of all the elements in the array by the number of elements. Okay, so now I'm going to say create indicator. All right. So create indicator. I'm going to get on my Windows. My LabVIEW program is growing. That always happens, and so you'll have to start moving things around here. So I'm going to get this guy up here. I don't need this for loop that big. It's just taking up real estate and I really don't have a lot in my window. So I'm going to move this over here. Things are getting a little funky here with all these wires, but that's okay. Okay, so let's compare these values here. I'm going to hit Control E, go to the front panel, and X, Y. So it put this value here, and this is going to be my average temperature. Okay, so I'm going to call this average T, say AVET, average temperature. And I'm going to run my program here and we'll compare these values. Okay, so it has to collect values. Okay, so now I have an average value. Okay, and you see here that the scalar temp, this value here, scalar temp inside of the for loop, is changing pretty quickly. Okay, and this one gets updated much more infrequently. So, but that is the average value because you see over here in LabVIEW, this thing is changing quite a bit, and so taking an average of all of your data points is one way to eliminate a little bit of uncertainty. Now, how many averages should you do? That depends on your experiment. You'll get to a place though where increasing the averages might not help you, but that's usually quite a bit of averages, but that is a topic of discussion for another video. That completely depends on your experiment. So, but I would say if some averages are good, so we're doing 20 averages here. Now this is taking a while for my value to update here, so I'm going to just put 10 averages here. And so this is going to make my program run a little bit faster. Okay, so my array changed size here. I'm going to see if I go too high. All right, so I'm going to go to 0, and now I'm doing an average value of my array. But I only have one value, and ideally I want to build up an array of average temperature values. Okay, so I already built one array. Now I'm going to build another array. So I'm going to stop my program. And now we're getting into some pretty fundamental LabVIEW programming here. If you are collecting data. Okay, so let's go to our menu here. And oh no, I got a text. See, don't try and look at your phone when you're programming because it's gonna create problems. Oh, and now some funky things are going on here. That's okay. I need to scroll over my program a little bit. Okay, there we go. Oh, my connection's getting really slow. Okay. Super laggy, but that's okay. Alright, so I don't know what happened there. Alright. So back to my program here. The problem with this program is every time you go through an iteration of your while loop, close that. Every time you go through an iteration of your while loop, it's going to overwrite your data. So your average temperature value here that we had over here, I'm going to move this over. I don't know what. Oh, why is it doing that? Oh. Close my context help. Alright, I'll just do it the hard way. Apologize, having some minor issues with LabVIEW here. So these windows do not want to change size. Probably it's because I'm remote controlling into program. So I haven't saved in a while. I'm going to go and hit save. Always save your data. So the problem here is this average temperature value, which is what I was trying to get. It gets overwritten every time you go through another iteration of your while loop. And we want to build up an array of average temperature values. And so we need to pass that from one iteration of the while loop to another. Now over here on our for loop, it did that automatically. I'm going to show you another way to do this, and this will allow you to control your data a little bit better. So go to array and grab build array. It's this guy right here. Okay. So when you drag it over here, it's right here under programming an array. So when you grab a build array, it has one input value here. And I'll put my context help on so you can see. Alright, so here's my context help. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, wait till the arrow changes until I can drag it down a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to get 2 elements. Now this is a special sort of automated feature, and you kind of have to know about it. I figured this out one time because I was making a program for one of my experiments. Okay, so I'm going to take my average array. This is the value that I want to build up an array of. I'm going to grab a wire, and I'm going to go into the bottom one here. Okay, so I've got build array here. Now I'm going to create a wire here. I'm going to click here, get a nice big loop, click over here. I'm going to drag it back around and go into the top input value. When I do that, it automatically puts this funky thing here called the feedback node. And this allows you to store data from one VI execution of a loop to the next. But we have to do some things here. Okay, so you're going to click on this and you're going to say create. I'm going to say move initializer one loop out. Okay, and so this is going to initialize your array value, and I think it will initialize the new value you're going to add. And so you need to say create constant, okay, and it has a value of 0. Now, why do you need to do this? This is how LabVIEW tells you to start building on to the end of your array, adding a new element with the value of 0 every time you go through the array, okay? And so now I need to see what this array is going to look like, okay? So I'm going to say, click on my wire here, right here, and say create indicator. Alright, now if you look at this, this is an array type indicator. This is a scalar type indicator. So this is good. Now I have created an array of values. So I'm going to click on that, go into my front panel. My context help is in the way. Close that. And I made a change, so I'm going to hit File, Save. Okay, so this is my appended array value. This is the one that I care about, the thing that I'm going to save. And, oh, no, don't drag that out of there. Hit Control Z. That's not what we want. You can drag that little box out of there. Don't do that. I'm having issues here with my remote connection. My mouse is not wanting to cooperate with me, but that's okay. It's minor setup. Okay, so over here is my appended array. This is the one that I care about. I call this appended T array, appended temperature array. So I'm going to put a T in there so I know what it is. It's always good to label each of these things so that you know what it is. If you don't, you will have a screen full of indicators, not useful. And when you get your program finished, you're going to hide most of these things because they're not helpful to the end user. They're just confusing. But for the purposes of testing, I always have a lot of indicators so that I can see what's happening at each stage of my value. Alright, I'm going to see what the values are at each stage of my programming process. Okay, so I'm going to run this now. And so if I look at here, okay, now the first column is full, and this is starting to fill up my array. So I'm getting an array of temperature values, and this is just going to continue to grow. If you look over here at this array always stays the same. This is for the array from my for loop, and it always has 10 values, or however many values I say. And this is the array of values that I care about. This is my temperature array. These are all average values, and so I can set this up over time. And let's say you wanted to monitor the temperature overnight. That can be a useful process. Then you can just leave this running, and it would save your data. So that is how you build an array of temperature values. Then you would take these values and you would run them to your save function if you wanted to. I can show you how to do that real quickly. So then first hit stop on your program. Okay. So my program is, okay, now it's stopped. So that arrow went back there. Okay, so I'm going to save these values. There are many different ways that you can save. I'm going to show you the easiest one, I think, and that's in the Express menu. So I'll hit Express, and we'll look under Output. No. Write measurement file. So that is here, File IO. There's a lot of useful things here. So I'm going to say write measurement file. I'm going to use the automated one. There's one that's not automated over here when you have to set everything, but that is a video for another time. I'll show you this automated one real quickly. It's often easy to do it. There's a bunch of settings here. First thing, you're going to need to specify where you want it to save the data. You can specify this automatically, so it will save it every time, or you can click on Ask User to choose a file. But I don't care right now. And I want to say use the next available file name. Otherwise, if I pick rename existing file, it's just going to overwrite that same data file. Okay, so this will be test LVM, and I'm going to use a text file. LabVIEW has this LVM, and it's really just a text file, and it has the .lvm extension. You can just open it with a text file. Now, if you picked here under headers, you need to say how many headers you want. We were going to say one header only. You can say put one header per segment, but then every time it goes through the big while loop, it will give you a header, which is very, very annoying if you have to take that out later. So make sure to put one header only. Then here you can say, do you want a time value in there for one column? And we're going to say, yes, we do. It's going to be tabulator. So this means your data will be tab delimited. And so when you import it into Excel, you're going to have to tell it how is your data delimited. And that means that you're going to have a tab between each column of your data. So I'm going to hit OK. And then this is not hooked to anything. So I am going to take my data over here that I've been saving, this array, and I'm going to just wire it right in there. And you see it automatically converted this into dynamic data. So that's data to dynamic data. And now we can go inside of here. Okay. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go to the front panel, and I'm going to hit run. And it should give me a data file saved somewhere. I don't know where it was because I specified I didn't want it to ask me, but actually I do want it to ask me because I want to know, well, where am I putting this? And you should specify that so that the user knows where you're going to put it. Okay, so it pops up this window, and it says, where would you like to save your data? Go to Documents, LabVIEW Data, and I'll just save it here. We'll call this Thermo 1. So that is under Documents, LabVIEW Data. I'll hit OK. Hopefully I can remember where it is. And so now I'm getting values here. There, we got some values. Okay, so pretty slow, but that's okay. There's ways you can make it faster. So I'm going to hit stop. Then I'm going to go into my program, into the computer, and see if it actually saved it. You always want to check to see if it actually saved it. Alright. Oh, and there's Thermo 1. So I'm going to click on that. You might have to specify, use your notepad to open that. And now I'm saying, what are these funky values it's giving me? Let's go back to our LabVIEW program and see if that is actually what we had in our LabVIEW program. Here's our front panel. That is basically how you do it. So, now that looks strange to me, because in this, let's see, 26937. Okay, so this is that is a lot more data than I actually had on my than I thought it was saving. So let's close that. We'll put this window away. And now you have to figure out, well, that's not how I thought my data should be. So why am I getting so many more values here than when I look at this value right here? Because it seems like my program is doing something, and I'm not really understanding why it's doing that. Okay. So I need to look in my data file here and try and understand what's happening. Okay, so I only had a few values to... Aha, so I did something funky here, and it says 1628649, and then it's repeating these values. Every time it goes through my loop, then it's adding, it's rewriting everything I had in there every time I go through the while loop. So this is really important, because if you took data like this, this would not be what you think it is. So if you notice here, okay, first value, 16.82649. And then my second value, okay, it added one value here. But every time it's repeating these values and then saving again. Not what we wanted. Oh, that is a big mistake. And my main issue here is, this was really great, because this is a very, very important lesson. And so what you need to do is you need to actually move this thing outside of this while loop. Otherwise, it's just going to keep saving to your data file. So not what we wanted. So super critical that you look at your data, figure out if you're getting what you think you are, because you might not be. That was a simple mistake, but that would be pretty catastrophic, because basically that would mean that you're getting utter gibberish in your data file. Okay, so part of this is testing your LabVIEW code, and part of that means looking at your data and making sure that your data is what you think it is. Okay, so I'm really glad that happened. I messed up. I put the saved data in your while loop. Don't put it in there. Now we're going to run our program again, and then we're going to check our data file and see if we're getting what makes sense. Okay, alright, now it's faster now for some reason. Seems a little faster. Not sure exactly what happened. Oh, I only have 3 averages here. That's why. So this for loop is it's not quick, and we can. And I'll say here. I'll pick Thermo 1. I'll say OK. It should pick the next value, and so it finished when I was done, and it picked OK. Thermo 2. That's my data file. Let's compare what we get here. Okay, very important. How many values do we have in here? Okay. And is it repeating itself again? It could be, but we need to check and see, well, is this the same number of values that's stored on the front of my my machine here? So let's count them. This might be painful, but definitely worth it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay, so it had 29 values in the array. Go to LabVIEW here. And how many columns did we have in our data? We can check it. So let's go up here. At about 30. And so about, 28. I counted 28. When LabVIEW does this, the first column is always, the first row is always 0, or the first column. Okay, so it looks like it's right. We're going to test it one more time. Let's do 10 values here. I'll make it a little slower. And, okay, so then we should only have a few values here. We'll stop it. So we'll have 5 values in our data file. It's going to ask me to save it. I'll just click here. The next file will be Thermo2. Hit OK. So go over here. Thermo3 should have 5 values. There, I have 5 values. My program is saving the data correctly, and my LabVIEW program is done, except for one thing. I didn't save it, so I'm going to save my file right there. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I am going to stop streaming. So I will see you in class.